That is right. We are live. This is the Del Valley Sports Pod. This is episode number 56. We are here. We are live on Twitter, YouTube, even my Facebook tonight. It's a unusual Thursday episode with me and Dan, but we're here to talk about one of the best games of the season, an absolutely clutch win by the Philadelphia Eagles last Sunday. I can't wait to break it down. Dan, happy Thursday. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, brother. Let's talk ball. Let's just talk ball here.
Let's just talk ball. Okay. Grand scheme of things, the Eagles won 24-19 over the Baltimore Ravens. And in my opinion, it was 24-12 because they scored a touchdown with 3 seconds left in the game. And I said it last week that if they got off to a slow start, that would be the only way that the Ravens could beat the Eagles. And you know what? True to form, the Eagles got off to a slow start. Went down 9-0, had 4 punts to start the game. Did not look good. I don't know about you. I was chewing on the end of my fingers very hard that first quarter. But they turned it around. Not only did they start slow, still won the game, they won in, I would say, a dominant fashion. How did you feel in the first half?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with a large part of that, and it's a combination of things, right? The Eagles' first 3 drives offensively, 4 plays and a punt, 3 plays and a punt, 3 plays and a punt. And obviously in between those drives, the Ravens had the ball. They'd have a 7-play drive for a field goal, then an 8-play drive for a touchdown. And I'm just thinking, 1, we're not getting points, but 2, this defense is just getting hung out to dry right now. Like this, if this keeps going on, there's no way we have a shot in this game. I've said this a bunch of times. You have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and as you saw in this game with BG out, I know it's just one guy, but BG being out, and Huff, I mean, he's been out, but the rotation, we don't really have a rotation right now. Not a deep one. You know, we got maybe 1 or 2 guys that are coming in and out. Anyways, I was super concerned about fatigue, and you see the Ravens in so many games where they kick tail in the second half because of that Derrick Henry effect. And I think we're familiar with that effect as far as the Eagles go with Barkley this year and how many times we've seen that with the second half effect and the kind of grind and wear and tear. So, no, I was not feeling good after the first quarter at all.
I wasn't either, and going back and watching the All-22, something stuck out to me on the first drive alone, and it's something we've talked about. It's why is this team starting so slow? Is it Kellen Moore? Is it the script? Are they just playing feeler? But what stuck out to me, first play, Saquon Barkley goes 12 yards on the rush straight up the middle. The next down, the next set of downs, they go incomplete to Paris Campbell. Will Shipley is in the game.
Back, by the way.
Yeah, it's good to, welcome back, but then they also released him. I don't know if you saw that. So
yeah, I guess that means Smith is probably, that's who he is, right? He's going to bounce back and forth between probably roster and practice squad based on Devonta Smith's health.
Anyway, pass to Paris Campbell, Will Shipley running the ball to the right end, and then they throw it to Britton Covey, 3 and out, or 4 plays, but, 3 downs right out the gate. Why are those people touching the ball? Those are the scripted plays, allegedly. You run with Saquon for 12 yards, and then you go to your bottom depth pieces. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense.
I'm trying to, I think it was the Paris Campbell incompletion pass. Dude, watching the All-22 of that first drive, it looked to me Dotson wide open down the field.
Yeah.
Wide open. Hurts, clean pocket, chilling, wide open, hitting like a corner route, basically. Hurts, when he's not doing these RPOs, he's looking really, really, really bad. He's totally, I don't have the box score pulled up. We did this last game. He's just like totally unwilling to throw it to anyone that's not Goddard or Brown, and then obviously Barkley. Again, 1 catch on 1 target for Dotson, and then 1 target for Covey, and 1 target for Campbell, both of which came in that drive. By the way, he didn't throw to him a single time after that.
Frankly, that's fine by me. because those guys are not the same players as you mentioned. AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert. I can't wait until they get Devontae back.
It's fine by me until I start watching the film and I'm seeing a wide open receiver that he just is afraid to throw it to. That's the problem, though. That's the thing.
Until it bites them in the ass, I'm not going to come down heavy on him. Yeah, maybe he missed a throw and they could have had a long touchdown, but when they play the game that they're good at, which is the RPO with Saquon, they're better than their opponent, and they're going to rely on that. And I'm glad they finally went back to that in the latter half of the first quarter and into the second quarter. Now,
that first successful drive, it was in the kind of the beginning of the second quarter. Was that not the RPO drive, dude?
I do want to talk about this, and this you're leading me right into this. The game turned on a dime with that drive. Before that, they put the Ravens to a 3-and-out, and Braden Mann, before that, I'm getting caught up here looking at the drive by drive. The Eagles went 4 plays for 21 yards at the end of the first quarter. Braden Mann, who is killing it as the punter, downed them at the 1-yard line. The Ravens go 3-and-out. The Eagles get the ball back, and then absolutely, you are correct, sir. They run the ball with Jalen Hurts or with Saquon in the RPO. Then they go back the same exact play. Jalen Hurts takes it. They hit AJ Brown over on the left side, and then the next play is Dallas Goedert. And all of these plays,
Twinkle toes Dallas Goedert into
all
the
of
end
these
zone.
plays happened in no huddle. So they had the Ravens on their heels. They're just like, okay, we know what we need to do. Jalen Hurts is getting up to the line of scrimmage, reading the defense, changing the play, and then they go. Those 4 plays, it's like you can't defend it. Okay, I gotta check Saquon. Oh, but then Hurts is gonna take it the next play. Now everybody's reading run, and then they throw it to AJ Brown because he's wide open. Mm-hmm. That is how this offense is clicking, because you have 4 to 5 guys you need to check on every single play. And a lot of times the athletes the Eagles have on the offense are better than the athletes that are on the defensive side of the ball.
Can I ask you a question? You're not going to like this question.
That's fine.
You're not going to like it at all.
Hey, this is an open forum, Dan.
Is that the fact that the RPOs kind of simplifying things, right? Do this or that, or do this, that, or that, and do like quick decision and then go for it. Is that a hit at all on Hurts? Is that when he has these plays where it's a pass play, set in the pocket, go through your reads, find your man, versus the RPOs? And I'm not saying every single game he can't sit in the pocket and throw the ball, although as of late I would argue that he's looked very uncomfortable doing that, and especially the decision-making when it's not just, oh, shoot, I'll just throw it to A.J. Brown or Smith, right, or Goddard. But is that a little bit of a hit on Hurts and a little bit of the coach saying, hey, listen, Hurts is not making great reads right now. We need to just kind of take that side of it out of his hands a little bit and just run some of the simplified RPO?
I mean, I think you have a point. He's not ever going to be a straight up pocket passer and be in the top 10 of that portion of being a quarterback. He's not, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, even Patrick Mahomes. He is a good game manager, which is not a knock on him, but he does what he needs to well enough to get the team going. Now, a lot of this, I think, is because Saquon Barkley is so good. He commands so much of the attention on the defense. And what the Eagles are doing is playing to their strength. They're not trying to be something they're not. Now, if some team, which hasn't happened yet, was able to take Saquon Barkley completely out of the game, and Hurts had to be in the pocket, finding the open receiver on multiple progressions, that's how you beat the Eagles. But to this point, I haven't seen that happen, and I don't think the Eagles are going to shoehorn themselves into doing that when they don't need to. So, yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts is not the best straight-up pocket passing quarterback in the league. No one has ever said he would be. That's just the type of player he is, but he has skills that a lot of other teams don't. And when you have to worry about 2 people running the ball, that being Saquon and Jalen, on any play, that's taking a safety or a linebacker out of the equation. And when that RPO happens and then they bite, somebody's going to get open. So I definitely see your point.
Puts a lot of emphasis in and you could say this for any quarterback, I suppose, but puts a lot of emphasis on making sure that you do have those big guns around him, right? Your AJ Brown and your Saquon Barkley, and he can make it happen with those guys. But when then we start to lose some of those big names like this Smith or Brown, we've seen that in the past. Hence the Buccaneers game, all production he has to be kind of a different quarterback, I would say, and it hasn't seemed to work out. So, and obviously a nice sturdy offensive line in front of him will take anyone a long way. But there were a couple drives, and I won't get too far ahead. I think one was on this drive that we're talking about right now, though. I could be wrong, where they did like the RPO and the first play in the progression. Back-to-back plays. The first play was a nice Saquon Barkley run, like a 10, 12-yard run, and then a play, it was an RPO the next play where Hurts kept it and ran it straight up the gut for like 10 yards. That straight up the gut run had at least 2 or 3 times with Hurts where it was definitively a 10-plus yard gain. And that's a testament, obviously, to the offensive line, but also Hurts' ability. And it's a testament to everything. It's a testament to how big of a distraction, how big of a key Barkley is on this defense. And, man, that was fun to watch that, the Barkley 10-yard run, and then, Hurts is going to keep it himself and get the same amount of yards. That's got to be tough to cover defensively. It's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, because it was literally the same play 2 times in a row, and this is their first touchdown drive, where Saquon got it, or Jalen got it the first time, or I think Saquon got it the first time, took it for, 7 yards. Jalen took it the exact same time because they bit on Saquon running. Now Jalen seeing that, he's like, okay, they bit, now I'm going to take it. They do the same exact play 3 times in a row, but he doesn't hand it off. He doesn't run either because they had 2 people biting to defend the run, and that's what opened up the middle of the field for AJ. And until I see it be stopped, I don't think that there is a defense in the league that can eliminate Saquon Barkley and take away AJ Brown at the same time. Every time AJ was single covered, he was 5 yards open.
Yeah. My only pushback to that, Colin, is that their defense did stop us and lock us up for a large portion of this game, and our defense saved our tails. I mean, that's the problem, is that the first 3 drives were almost all 3 and outs in the first half, and then we came out in the second half and came close to doing the same thing. Our first 2 drives in the second half, which has not been the norm, were also both 3 and outs. And our defense just wouldn't let the Ravens pull away. So, I mean, it's concerning. I it's hard. You don't want to just like everything's okay all the time type thing, because I feel like we did that last year and things finally caught up with us. So, it's problematic. It's frustrating when you don't end drives and touchdowns. It's frustrating when you don't end drives with points at all, field goals. But the 3 and out drives are super problematic, especially in the first half and the first quarter games. And I would just love to see them eliminate some of that.
I agree, but I also think we need to factor in the opponent. The Ravens have a great defense. And, obviously you're not going to score on every drive, but they scored enough when it mattered. And yes, I think we need to talk about the defense, because the defense is the reason that they won this game. Now, Lamar did Lamar things at times in the first half and the second half when it looks like he's swallowed up and he rolls out and he gets a 30-yard completion to Zay Flowers or Mark Andrews. But Lamar's going to do that. I mean, he's a 2-time MVP, could be a third. He's going to do that. And you're also playing against...
There's not a game plan you can put up that's going to prevent that from happening every play. There's just not. It's just nothing. You just can't.
Lamar is going to Lamar. But what they did was they prevented that absolute dagger play. We're talking 50, 60-yard touchdown. I think their longest play was give or take 35 to 40 yards. And I think that was in the first half. But again, that's just because Lamar can do things that no other quarterback, sans Patrick Mahomes and maybe Josh Allen, can do in the NFL. What they did do was hold Derrick Henry to 82 yards on 19 carries, had a long of give or take 15, 20 yards, but
The
still,
long was the big, yeah.
but still, a lot of times he was swallowed up within 5 yards. And do we get into that? That was the play of the year, possibly.
Listen, the thing is, Derrick Henry was getting his, and that Ravens offensive line was at times really dominating. But what was so freaking impressive is you see that so many times with the Ravens offense and with Derrick Henry. And the real problem is when he gets the 5 yards, builds up a head of steam, and then goes. And I'm getting chills. This is something that we did not have last year. This freaking linebacker play. And there were a lot of plays where the defensive line, the 4 front, the 5 front, however it was, whatever play it was, they were dominated. And that the hole was there, and Henry went through it. And I got to tell you, man, Nakobe Dean and a lot of Zach Bond dipping and diving around blockers and then going and making the tackle. How many times last year did we see Nicholas Morrow shed a block or use his agility to get by an offensive lineman that's trying to get his running back ultimately to the second level? It was unbelievable. It was such impressive play. And even though you're making those plays at times, it was after 4 or 5 yards by Henry. That tackle is huge, man, because if it's not made there, that guy is gone. I was so impressed with Bond and the rest of the guys at their ability to stop Derrick Henry when he did bust through that initial offensive line or defensive line.
Yeah, and you'll get past the defensive line with your Derrick Henry, but Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean. I mean, Nakobe Dean from last year to this year, an unbelievable progression.
Unbelievable.
Zach Bond, a guy we never even knew of, is borderline best linebacker playing this season. And obviously, I think it showed in this game better than any other. We have 2 of the best defensive tackles in football, with Jalen Carter probably the best. When he was one-on-one, he could not be blocked.
He was awesome. And he was not one-on-one very often.
No, he was not. But Jordan Davis also, I think, had his best game as a pro. When those 2 guys are double-teamed, they're still not getting pushed back. They are standing their ground, one arm on each guy, which is allowing the other defensive ends and linebackers to fill in the hole. When those guys are getting double-teamed, which they're not on every play, but theoretically, they could take up 4 offensive linemen on their own. And then you have it's just
well, back to those two guys. So Jordan Davis, I think that they're utilizing him in a way that's best for him. He only played that's going to get the most out of him, sorry. He only played, I'm seeing 33% of the plays. You sent that to me earlier in the week. I think Jordan Davis had an awesome game. I don't think it was his best game as a pro. I think when we were doing this pod last couple years, we've seen a couple really impressive I'm taking over Jordan Davis games. And he had a much higher snap count in those days and in previous years. But I don't know that he's had the context of how good of a team they were playing and how big the moments were. And you know what I mean? If you factor that in, I see what you're saying there. And as far as Carter goes, I sent this to you earlier in the week. I should have saved it for the pod. Dude played 99% of the defensive snaps he was out there. 99 against, and you're chasing Lamar Jackson every other play. And he was, by the way. You watch that game, Carter is constantly chasing Lamar Jackson. 99% of the plays. You know, we talked about Carter in the past as kind of being a little bit an attitude guy, a little bit of a does he give it all every play is kind of sprinkled in here and there. I did not see plays off from Jalen Carter. And in some ways, he had every right to take a play or 2 off and maybe needed to. But he was unbelievable. And I was just so impressed with when he did get double teamed or he wasn't really a threat for the pass rush, he did such a freaking good job at holding his guy or guys and keeping his eyes up, right? So that if the defensive ends go around wide and Lamar starts to step up, he shadowed that. I just thought his awareness was so on point. And to me, again, that shows that he's not taking plays off, because even if he's not, trying to bulldoze through the defensive tackle every play, he's still tuned in and he's still kind of shadowing and spying Lamar Jackson. By the way, he looked so fast to me just by the fact that he was hanging with Lamar Jackson at times from sideline to side. I couldn't believe it. I was like, when's this guy going to pull away? It's a defensive tackle. And he hung in there, man. I was blown away. And one last thing, how many holds do you think were called against the Baltimore Ravens in this game?
I don't remember one. If it was a single one.
There was one single hold
Okay.
on the defense. Not a single hold against the Ravens offensive line. That is, plug your ears, bullshit. It's a disgrace that Carter is not getting more holding calls against him. And honestly, he didn't complain that much. You can see him kind of put the arms up a little after plays, but he seemed relatively quiet about it. What are we doing? Not a single hold. Watch the film. It's egregious. We talked about it before, but I thought it was egregious. There was one play where Lamar Jackson somehow threw it to Justice Hill, who you couldn't even see on the TV screen. I don't know if you remember that play. It was like, oh, shoot, I got to get rid of the ball. Somehow the ball just has evaporated and then Justice Hill comes squeaking out. Jalen Carter was on the guy, and half of his body is being held by the offensive lineman. It was a disgrace. I can't believe that they're not calling it a single time. How'd they not get one holding call against them, dude?
It's a mystery to me, as it is to you, and as to a lot of people who break down the NFL, how these guys are so good. They should be getting sacks, but they're not, and I would beg to differ. That's because they're getting held. One thing, well, going off of what you just said, with Jalen Carter being able to keep his awareness and keep his eyes up, he's locked in on every play. But the entire defense is locked in on every play. A couple of things I noticed from snap one to the end of the game is, one, they barely, if at all, had to rush more than 4 guys. They were holding their own with 4, which allowed them to keep 2 deep safeties the entire game. Now, I think that screwed up Lamar. How many times do you think he has a safety coming up in the box to stop either him or Henry with a scramble or a run up the gut? They did not have to do that because their defensive line is so good. They can stop it at the initial level, and they can allow their secondary to play perimeter, deep coverage on a speedy Zay Flowers and a really good tight end in Mark Andrews. The defensive line was able to contain him for the most part, as much as you can expect to, on Lamar Jackson. And the linebackers, anytime, what you said earlier, anytime that they did get past the initial level, Henry was not busting it for another 10 to 15 yards beyond contact. The other thing I noticed is as soon as the ball is caught or it is in space by a Ravens player, they are swarming. Absolutely. Like there was a play where I forget who got the ball, but I know the Ravens player had it. There were 5 guys in Eagles jerseys immediately on the guy, and there's one Ravens player just kind of standing around watching the play happen. Now that is buy-in. That is what a team that has a championship pedigree is all about. It's not about talent. It's also about buy-in and effort on every single play, because that is what wins games. I remember
playing with each other too. It looks like
they love it. I remember seeing that in 2017, and we're seeing it again. Everybody is playing for the guy next to them because not only do they know how good they are, they know how much everybody cares.
I think the biggest difference is the youth. It's young guys. Usually, you would hope to expect that from veteran guys or a defense that has mostly veteran leadership, but this team has quite a bit of youth on it. I mean, you got Bond, CJ, GJ himself is still like pretty young. This is a young defense, man.
Yeah, I mean, Reed, before he went out, you got obviously DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, who tracked down Zay Flowers, who's a track star, by the way. That play in the second half, that was great to see. Nakobe Dean as a linebacker. You got Jalix Hunt, and Nolan Smith is emerging as a great pass rusher.
I would say this was the breakout Nolan Smith game. It was probably, I didn't look, but his past games, but I gotta figure this is the most he's ever played in a game. I had him at 81% of the defensive snaps. I don't think I've ever seen him on the field that much. Obviously, it makes sense because BG went down. But he looked, I remember when he first started last year, he looked just small and overmatched. And he looks more aware. He looks more looks more physical, but also more like just he knows what he's doing out there. Before he used to just like, yeah, I'm running around, I'm gonna see what happens. But he looked good out there. I mean, he had 8 tackles and a sack. Nolan Smith breakout game. I thought he looked great.
I don't think there's any question. When we talked last week, we're like, all right, there's a little bit of a hole now that BG is done for the season. Who's next man up? And clearly it was Nolan Smith. He was like, hey, this is your turn, buddy. You got to shine. And he came through with flying colors. I mean, they sacked Lamar for three times for 31 yards, which put them out of Justin Tucker's pitiful field goal range at least once. Lamar wasn't able to throw the ball from the pocket the same way that you were saying about Jalen Hurts can't. They were able to contain him with 4, and at times he didn't know where to go with the football because they had 7 guys back there in coverage. And again, it's like the front end is helping the secondary. The linebackers are the clear, like, we got your back on the defensive line. They're playing so good. I've seen it. This is statistically so far the best Eagles defense since 1991, the legendary Gang Green defense with Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, and Reggie White. That is how good this defense is. And we're talking like they had some amazing defenses in the early 2000s when they had Trotter and all those guys when they went to the Super Bowl. Those were some really damn good defenses. And this, as a total defense, yards, scoring, they are ahead or just as good as that team at best defense since.
Remind me, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on this guy. The famous Eagles coordinator during that era.
And what, Jim Johnson?
Jim Johnson.
Yeah.
Jim Johnson.
I think Vic Fangio is getting, like we're talking about Bond, Bond, yes, but Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith. I think Vic Fangio is absolutely maximizing the potential of his players based on scheme and probably just of his acumen as a defensive coordinator. I did not see these young players progressing to the level that they are, and I think you can also throw Quinyon and Cooper in that mix.
All of them. Listen, this is a conversation we had last year, is when we were seeing the season, really the whole season, but we were talking about these young guys last year. We were talking about guys like Davis, Carter, and Dean and Smith. We're talking about this stinks because our defense stinks now, but we're also like wasting this young talent. The worst part of it is that we weren't seeing any development from our young guys who were pretty high draft picks, and we were pretty hopeful that they were going to become like not just serviceable, but pretty good players. And we weren't seeing that development, which it sucks for. It felt like a waste, like we're wasting this young talent. So to see that extreme development this year, this guy's clearly a good coach. Knows what he's doing, both from a schematic standpoint, but also from just a general player development standpoint.
Yeah. Shout out, Nenan. Thank you for listening. This is the opposite of what we were seeing last year from Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. I remember it like it was yesterday, but it was a year ago yesterday when they got their tuchus handed to them by the Niners at home. That was December 4th of last year. So a year ago started the slide. That team was going like this, straight downhill, like the first drop on a roller coaster. They are in the exact opposite trajectory this year. Over the last 8-game win streak now, but I would say over the last 5 games, they are playing more cohesive football than I've seen an Eagles team play in a long time. And I mean, we talked about it, complementary football. The defense is keeping the other team's offense off the field. We're running the ball right down their throats. The offensive line, I saw a breakdown earlier this week. They're one of the few teams in the NFL that can get a pulling player from all 5 offensive linemen. Yeah. Whether it's Mailata, Juergens, Dickerson, any one of those guys could pull on any different play and do it effectively. And something that was brought up, I forget who it was, but they bring up a good point. When you have these massive human beings and are pulling, sometimes 2 of them on one play, that's blurring the line of vision that the linebackers have, which is helping Saquon and Jalen get these 8, 9, 10-yard runs because the linebackers can't see. You got Jordan Mailata, who's 6'8", 350, running sideways across the offensive line. I don't know where Saquon is because he's stuck behind that behemoth human being.
That head better be on a swivel, my friend.
They're Saquon Barkley and this offensive line. It's been said, but it is a literal match made in heaven. It's fun to see on the All-22 when you see these guys going laterally, pancaking people.
It's fun. And you get Becton, it's just hilarious because he's been a beast for us. And you see the New York Jets and how atrocious their team and their offensive line is. And you're just like, you guys couldn't figure this. This guy's enormous. Clearly he's good at football. You guys couldn't figure this thing out with this guy. Coaching. We got good coaching this year.
That is such a clear dichotomy between a good football team and a bad football team. When you see Mekhi Becton get left for dead on the Jets because they couldn't figure out how to utilize him and emphasize his strengths, and he comes here, he's like, "Oh, I am still a top 5 pick that they took me at. I'm still that good at football. It's just I had terrible coaching and a terrible surrounding cast over there." And I mean, Bond's another one. Just guys that are coming in here who were not good on other teams. Barkley. We have the coaching and the scheme and the talent everywhere from top to bottom where they're maximizing talent at every level, every position. It's amazing to see. Cooper DeJean, I mean, do we want to get to that play of the year? Plants Derrick Henry on his tuchus to basically seal the game.
Yeah, that was awesome.
The exciting life,
he was
bro.
Ready to go with the celeb too. Listen, dude, one thing that really sticks out to me with Cooper DeJean is how freaking chatty that guy is when he's out there on the defense. It's pretty cool. Obviously, you'd hope for communication, like it's super important in defenses to know what everyone's doing. But for a rookie to be that talkative and that confident out there that he feels like he can be that way, that's always stuck out to me from early on with him. But it sticks out every single week when I watch the film. He is doing so much communicating out there pre-snap. Pretty cool to see. I don't know. I would kind of think that rookies maybe wouldn't do as much of that, whether because they don't have the confidence to do it or they just aren't as well informed with what's going on. He seems to just be a very quick learner. He seems to be a very high IQ guy, along with all of the other physical abilities that he has, because he has caught on quite fast here. And I think that is I don't know the ins and outs of the slot back cornerback position, right? But it seems a lot more complicated than playing on the outside. It seems like there's a lot more switching, a lot more movement. And he's just, I mean, on the other side of that, Avonte Maddox came in for that first drive. I don't know why, by the way, Avonte Maddox was in. Very quickly, he got us shaking our head again as he got a big costly penalty on, I think, a third down. And then he played, I think, one other play in the game on that was not a special team. So, yeah, just that alone, right? We went from that guy to this guy that's putting Derrick Henry on his butt. And by the way, I don't think that we knew he could do that.
I didn't. He's got to be giving up at least like 50 pounds to Derrick Henry.
The form was unbelievable on that tackle, though.
They're
The
going to
form
show
was
that in
unbelievable.
high school film rooms for decades.
Yeah.
They're like, it doesn't matter how big you are. You can take someone down if you have the correct form. You show shoulder right in the chest, pick up the legs, drive him into the ground.
Bro, he was so low to the ground. He was so low to the ground.
You
when
got to
he was
get
in
lower
that
than your opponent,
position.
right? That's
Well, especially if your opponent has Derrick Henry legs.
yeah.
But I
he's a
just
freak.
can't believe how low he got and was still balanced and made that tackle. Yeah, Derrick Henry's not used to that. By the way, I kind of feel like the defense went into that game going, we really don't have to worry about if Derrick Henry's in them passing the ball to him, because they really don't pass the ball to Henry that much, I don't think. But they utilized that a ton in that game. They threw to Henry more times than I remember Henry being out there for pass plays.
I would have to agree, and part of me thinks it's because that the corners and the secondary was able to just stay where they were, play deep coverage, and I mean Zay Flowers did not really do much. He had 3 catches for 47 yards, that long of 40.
Yeah, and the long play was, it was Lamar Jackson probably should have gotten tackled in the backfield. It was like 8 seconds of Lamar Jackson holding the football, and then Zay Flowers just got to sprint around and got wide open. That was not like a busted coverage. It was like, all right, you guys got to get to Lamar faster than 7-8 seconds. That's not fair,
That's what happens when you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. He can do those kind of things.
And the 2 passing touchdowns were great coverage. That passing touchdown to Mark Andrews, like, you kind of throw your hands up and go, what are you going to do? I mean, it was an unbelievable catch on a bullet of a pass. God. He was surrounded by defenders. The biggest man in the end zone also had to get up, and that was an unbelievable catch. And then the other touchdown that was way later at the end of the game, I think was Likely. It was very similar situation. I mean, a perfect pass, good coverage, couldn't have got to that ball, made a great, incredible catch in the back of the end zone. So even the touchdowns were like, dude, that was great coverage. That was great coverage. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews had 3 guys on him, and the only reason he caught the ball because he was 6'5" and jumped straight up in the air.
Yes.
Was able to catch it higher than anybody else on the defense could jump. And then he stayed in that position because he's like, "Hey, look what I got! Found the ball. It's just because I'm really tall."
I thought for a second there was one play I thought Quinyon was gonna have my back with the pick, the deep route to Zay Flowers. He was all over him. He was close. He was close. Didn't get it, but he was close. One other guy.
That ball was overthrown. If that ball had been within catching radius of Zay Flowers, I think he would have gotten said pick.
One other guy, and I hope you have stuff on this guy because I don't, and I didn't have the time to look into it. Can you tell me anything about free safety McCollum, dude?
Tristan McCollum?
That's another thing. When it was the fourth quarter, whatever it was, and he comes in, I'm like, oh man, we're screwed. Like, we're screwed. They're gonna break down defensively. We got some backup safety, and I don't even know who this guy is. We're screwed.
I did hear some breakdown on his play. He has been, a very big bottom of the roster, bottom of the depth chart safety for a long time. But apparently he busts his ass in practice day in and day out, even though he is exclusively a special teams player. This is from people I've heard inside the Eagles locker room, beat writers and such. So that when he was called upon, when Reed Blankenship was out with a concussion, he was in the right spots. He knew where to be. He's not the biggest guy in the league, but he busts his ass from what I've been hearing and is absolutely the kind of guy that wins you games because of the next man up mentality, which is the NFL is. It's a war of attrition. And thank God the Eagles have been one of the healthier teams in football, knock on wood. But when they have had guys
going down in that game,
when the guys have had people go down, whether it's Lane Johnson, Fred Johnson steps up, McCollum is one. They've had guys step in when they need to. And I think this speaks again to the buy-in of the team. You don't have guys who are just sitting around in practice being like, eh. And you want to talk about buy-in? How about Deontay Johnson getting suspended by his own team because he refused to go into the game. You want to talk about a team that's not bought in? Could you imagine Jahan Dotson or Britton Covey being like, nah, I ain't going in? Like that's not happening
not at all.
That's not happening on the Philadelphia Eagles. That's
It's
probably
weird.
not happening.
You'd think
it's not happening on a lot of NFL teams. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you'd think he wanted to go in, Colin. You'd think he wanted to play football that day. But
yeah. Do you know Deontay Johnson's stats for the Ravens? I believe my buddy Justin brought this up in a group chat of mine or somebody else.
Can I take a guess?
Yes, please.
For the Ravens specifically?
This is Deontay Johnson's stats on the Ravens. I think this is his first year with them.
He was traded mid-season.
Oh, he was. Okay. Yes.
He's actually the second leading receiver for the Panthers for receiving yards as it stands now for this year.
That's wild.
Yeah. No, he was traded, so he's probably been with them for, off the top of my head here, like 4 games. Really, I think it was trade deadline. So really, whenever the trade deadline happened, if you can remember what week that was.
I forgot. That was right after Halloween. So I think 4 or 5 games. That was one that got lost in the weeds for me with all the Schefter tweets. I was like, okay, Deontay Johnson. I don't care.
I'm gonna guess he has 8 targets, 2 catches, 15 yards.
He has 1 catch for 6 yards and 1 suspension. I don't know how many targets he has, but he has as many catches as he has suspensions from his own team.
Wow.
For conduct unbecoming of a player.
That's fantastic.
That guy has more talent in his left thumb than I have in my entire body, and he just doesn't give a shit.
It's yet another drama, a Steelers wide receiver that just has all this drama. It's really unbelievable. What are they doing over there in Pittsburgh? Over here, actually.
Yeah. You could go down the list, and I hope there's a 30 for 30 on this, and just like the absolute clown show that the Steelers wide receiver room has been over the years, from A.J. Brown to now George Pickens is an absolute nutcase.
He's got to grow up. He's got to grow up quick.
Some of the guys are escaping me right now. Bloomfield, I see your comment. We are going to talk a little bit of Packers Lions at the end of this once we wrap up the Eagles. Kevin's asking, what are the locks tonight, gentlemen? Kevin's a good guy. He loves firing bets. He absolutely loves firing bets. So we'll talk a little Lions Packers before we get out of here. But I don't know. This was another game that when it got into the second half and that Saquon run at the end of the game, and I told you about, speaking of bets, the parlay that I had.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, I do a parlay with my fantasy football group every week. We all put in one bet, $1, and we see if it hits. And so we had 9 bets this week. We went 7-0 in the early window. The last 2 bets were Rams to win, and my personal one was Saquon to have over 1 rush over 16.5 yards, which until the fourth quarter he didn't have. And then he busts that 25-yard touchdown, which he didn't get touched until the 7-yard line.
Unbelievable run. Who's blocking in the end zone for him? Who's blocking for him to seal it?
Was it Goddard? I forget who was down there.
Paris Campbell, baby.
Paris Campbell.
I'm gonna take it, and he was blocking on so many running plays. He's down there busting his ass. He's trying to get a spot on this team. He gets 1 week, and he's going. He knows he's going back to the practice squad when Smith gets back. He played his tail off for a team that he's loosely been playing with. He hasn't been on the. He's with them. He's on the practice. He's been on the practice squad and things like that, but. Shows me a lot about a guy who's a veteran in the league. He's been here for a while. It's not like a rookie who's trying to get a job. I mean, he is trying to get a job, but he could kind of hang up the laces, right? And there were multiple plays where he's busting it downfield with that last block, and he did it on that touchdown run.
Yet again, another example of buy-in from everybody 1 to 53. You got your 4th string wide receiver down there blocking his tail off so Saquon Barkley could score a touchdown. Saquon Barkley, by a wide margin, leads the league in yards before contact on running plays. Again, another testament to the offensive line. But that bet hit when Saquon scored that touchdown. I lost my freaking mind, Dan. I'm screaming in the bar, $1,600, give me my so what happened was we put $10 down. We won $1,600 as a group. $1 made me $180 on Sunday. I was a very happy man.
Love to see it.
That was a lot of fun. But once that touchdown hit, I'm like, okay, I've seen all I need to see. We got this game in hand. Because after the Ravens went down on their first two drives, 9 points, they're down 9-0 all the way until midway in the second quarter. They only scored 12 points the rest of the game, and they scored 10 points the rest of the game, and 7 of those were in garbage time. They held them after 9-0 in the first quarter to 3 points the rest of the game. Now, say what you will, Justin Tucker is absolute trash at kicking. What a fall off that's been. But when we got to the second half, seeing the way the defense was playing and the way the offense was figuring out how to beat the Ravens defense, I'm like, we got this. The second half was not quite a rocking chair ride, but I was nowhere near as stressed as I was in the first half.
Tucker's doing the thing where it's way wide right, then it's way wide left, and that to me is always a way worse sign than like we talked a couple weeks ago about how Elliott missed a bunch, and they're all just the same kind of miss almost exactly. He looks lost. He still has plenty of power in that leg, but man, he looks lost and overwhelmed. To your point, yeah, I mean, they exited the first half winning 14-12, and they almost ended the game winning 24-12. The Ravens got a touchdown there at the end, but they almost didn't let up a single point in the second half by the Baltimore Ravens, a team that has kind of been known for obviously being able to score tons and tons of points. They're in the top of the league as far as that goes, the top 3 or 5. And then just that second half Derrick Henry effect. And it was close to have, really was there. Like Derrick Henry was running on us, those 4 or 5 yards. The third quarter, here's the thing, man. The third quarter, the Ravens had the ball for 10 plays. Eagles then 3. Ravens 14 plays. Eagles 3, Ravens 7 plays. I'm watching this. I'm like, this defense is not. They are gonna be gassed. The Ravens offense basically had the ball the entire third quarter, Colin, and they're just running around. They're gonna be gassed. This defense showed to me a ton of heart and a ton of grit. And I think part of the reason why so many guys went down has to make, injuries are different than being fatigued, but I feel like when you're super gassed and fatigued, the injuries do come quicker. This defense had every right to be gassed, and they put their foot down when they needed to in the fourth quarter. And they just didn't give up, man. Despite all the plays that are out there, and despite the offense not being productive at all to start the second half, they just didn't give up, man. They showed a ton of grit, a ton of heart, and I give them all the credit in the world. I thought for sure, I was like, all right, this drive, we're going to see that the defense looks exhausted. And at times they did, but they just didn't give up. It showed a ton of heart. They played with a ton of pride in this game, man.
The Eagles, again, it was kind of strength on strength on both sides of the ball. Ravens offense, Eagles offense. The Ravens are typically that team that we're gonna pound it down your throat in the fourth quarter because you're tired. The Eagles outdid the Ravens at what they're good at in that aspect. Mm-hmm. And to that end, this is quite incredible. I don't know if you picked up on this. Do you know when the last pass was in the game for the Eagles?
Oh, another one of these.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm trying to picture an exact pass. It was probably... I'm going to guess, was it the Goddard pass where he was running across the field from right to left?
Yeah.
That was for a first down, I believe, a big first down. I'm guessing that was the third drive of the third quarter, so that would probably put us at is that the right drive? Third drive of the third quarter? For the Eagles?
It was the third drive of the half, but it was already into the fourth quarter.
Okay. So there you go. It's probably 13:50 or something like that.
Well, you absolutely nailed the play. It was 10 minutes left in the game. Pass to Goddard for 9 yards, put him at the 50 for a first down, and then 3 plays later was the Saquon touchdown.
They didn't have a good drive until the fourth quarter, Colin.
I know.
The offense just said, we're not showing up in the third quarter, defense. Good luck. That's what happened in this game.
But they still won.
I'm just giving the defense their flowers, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, 24 plays to 6 on the 2 drives by each team to start the game.
It's Lamar Jackson. Oh my gosh. I mean, you're going against the toughest grind. Oh, geez. I mean, we just don't want to beat a dead horse here, but man, it's unbelievable. I just don't think that can be overstated.
Bloomfield says not good when you have Hurts over passing yards. I don't think Hurts over passing yards is a good bet in any game for the rest of the season. But to finish the stat, yes, 10 minutes left in the game was the last time they threw the ball, and they ran 15 consecutive run plays from there until the end of the game, just completely asserting their dominance over the Ravens defense, which they knew was tired. They're like, all right, we see blood in the water. Let's go step on their throats. And that is exactly what they did.
In the same way that I was talking about how I was waiting for Derrick Henry to, after those 4 or 5 yard runs, I was waiting for that big, like, classic Henry big run. I did think the same exact thing for Barkley. Like, Barkley was getting those consistent good runs there, especially in the second half. And there were some in the first half as well. And it did have the same exact feeling of like, he's gonna bust through the line and get one. Like we've seen it all season long. Like it's gonna happen. And then for one of those running backs, it did happen in the fourth quarter. And it just so happened to be your Eagles, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Again, Bloomfield brings up a good point. Ravens defense was one of the best rushing defenses in football prior to the game against the Eagles.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show how good the unison of the offensive line and Saquon running at you is a force that you're going to need to step up in the box to stop it. And even when they tried to, they couldn't. I don't really have much else. I mean, that game was just fun to watch.
I don't have much else for the game, but as far as this Barkley rushing, I do want to segue it into this next game because I've been looking at some stats, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am excited about the Eagles season. I want the Eagles season to go well and to end well. I am excited about this Barkley potential record-breaking season, man. Like I am. I'm just going to say it. I want it to happen more than I ever can remember wanting a person to like break a record. Like I want it so bad. And if he's going to beat it, he's probably going to need one more like really massive game. And let me tell you, this is the team to do it against because we all know the Carolina Panthers aren't a great football team.
Yeah.
But what we may not all know is that they have the I think worst rushing defense, at least as it pertains to rushing yards per game. In 12 games, they have led up 2,000 rushing yards, 2,002 to be exact. They led up 166 yards, rushing yards a game. That's about 20 more than the next team, who is Dallas, which is satisfying. Little side note there. Their rush defense sucks. It's horrible. And man, it would be awesome if Barkley could have a big game. And I think I saw somewhere, I think that as far as you're talking about the bets and the lines and the over-unders, I think he has like one of the highest over-unders for an NFL game for rushing yards. I think it's in like the top 5, and it's all like Derrick Henry over-unders from the past, but it's at, I think, 130 something. This could be a huge Barkley game, which would be great for the Eagles. Want the Eagles to win. I want them to break this record so bad, man. And this is a game where they could take advantage of a really bad rush defense.
Yeah, I can't wait. So what do you say? 164 yards they're giving up a game?
Rush yards, 160. Yeah. I think it was like 68. I just said 167. Okay. 167.
Okay. Well, Barkley's averaging 125 per game on the season, which over 17 games puts him past Eric Dickerson's record. He's on pace for 2,123 yards, which would pass the record of 2081 off the top of my head, 2085, something in that realm. He's on pace to do it. And there's a chance he might get it in the 16 games because of the teams that they play in the next few weeks. The Panthers have a terrible run defense. The Cowboys have a terrible run defense. And so do the Giants.
And the Giants do too.
But the Giants game is week 18. So that's regardless, I think he breaks the record. Whether or not he can do it in 16 games is yet to be seen, but nobody's going to care about that. The record book is still going to show Saquon Barkley most rush yards in a single season, even if he breaks in 17 games. Oh no, did we lose Dan? Oh, Dan went frozen. That stinks. Well, that brings me to Kevin. Yeah, we got to get out and play some golf next year. He asked, do the Panthers get 17 points on Sunday? I'm going to say probably not. It's a little early, but if I had to put a prediction on it, I'm saying 34-13. That's what I would guess. And yeah, whatever Saquon's over-under is for this week, I'd say slam it. If it's 130, go ahead. I think he's probably going to get 160. Dan will be back here in a little bit, but I just don't see any way that this team doesn't win by at least 15 points. And we did want to talk a little bit about the Packers-Lions game tonight. I think this is a huge game for the Eagles. If the Lions beat the Packers, it's pretty much all but sealed up for the Lions to get the 1 seed. And it pretty much says that the Packers are not going to win the NFC North. If the Packers win, however, the Eagles have a clear shot and are the favorites from that point forward to win the 1 seed in the NFC, which is absolutely massive. If Detroit gets to play at home in the NFC championship game, that gives them so much more of a leg up than if they had to come to Philadelphia. And Jared Goff has shown he's not a great quarterback in cold weather games. Over 111 yards rushing for Saquon on Sunday. Slam it. I'm putting some shekels down on that. Absolutely. Worst rush defense in football, going against the best running back in football. You got, what do you even say to that? Like, yeah, that's going to happen. Rushing attempts per game, 21.5. What is he averaging on the season? Don't have that in front of me, but I can do some math here real quick. Let's do some math on the fly. What do you say? 246 divided by 12. He's averaging 20.5. And the last 3 games, he's had 26, 26, and 23. So it seems high. There's also a fair to high chance that he busts like another 50 to 60 yard one, and then they sit him in the fourth quarter. That's probably why the number is it's probably an enticing number, because there is a chance he gets sat in the fourth quarter if they are so far ahead, and he's also already rushed for 150 yards. I think the Eagles are going to be cognizant of knowing where he is in history and knowing that he has the potential to break one of the longest standing records in football. But if he's at 150 yards and is over his average and pace to get that, and they're winning by 20 points, they're not going to put him in harm's way to, try to, I don't know. They don't need to salt the game away anymore. Sorry, Dan. Welcome back. I was talking a little Saquon. You brought up the props for Saquon this year, or for this week. Excuse me. His lines per Bloomfield here: over 111 yards and 21 and a half rushing attempts. And I was saying how
yards over attempts.
Yeah, he might get 150 yards on like 18 attempts because he just busts some long ones. Yeah. And then the fourth quarter, they might sit him because he needs his rest, and they're not trying to cook him.
I want to finish your last point. You just mentioned those different teams. I have the top 5 worst in yards per game, rushing yards allowed per game. Number 1, Panthers. Number 2, Dallas. Number 3, Colts. Number 4, Giants.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think
supports
there's any
your
way, argument
there, Paul.
I don't think there's any way he doesn't break this record, given that they're playing 3 of the worst 4 rushing defenses in football.
I really feel like this has to be a big one, though, because the closer you get to the end of the season, the more you like rest him, kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's part of the reason why I feel like this has to be, and this is literally the worst defense against rushing statistically at least as far as it relates to yards per game. So I want a Barkley game. I want him to run it over 21 and a half times. I just don't think he will.
And this parlays or segues perfectly into how I think we should end the podcast talking about tonight's epic matchup between the Lions and the Packers.
You got a quick? Well, what about the thumbs up, thumbs down? We got a quick thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'm sorry.
What are we doing here?
You're right. You're right. I got ahead of myself. My bad. I'm so excited to watch some football tonight. Yes, let us give our flowers to not Zay Flowers, but the Eagles who deserve it. And I guess we have to tell somebody they didn't do so well. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to, Dan?
I'll go first. Thumbs up, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, you were awesome. Jalen Carter, you were awesome. Unbelievable game, unbelievable effort, great leadership out there. Gosh, I hope that you can get a holding call or two in the next couple of weeks because he is being held. But man, he was awesome. I think that this was the greatest full Jalen Carter game that I've seen, especially in the context of them really needing him to perform and going against top-tier talent. Really impressive stuff from Carter.
Yeah, it's really hard to go against him. I am going to go Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
Because not only did he have the hit stick to end the game, but it seemed like in very few instances was he out of position. They kept Lamar Jackson under his average for passing yards on the season. And a lot of it goes to the entire secondary as a whole. But I think Cooper DeJean, having missed the preseason and the early games that he did this year, has come so far, farther than I think any of us could have hoped. He is an electric player. The exciting whites, he's just eating it up. He's being put on the spot, and he's living up to all of his expectations. I can't wait to see more. Cooper DeJean, thumbs up to you, sir.
Yes.
Now, I guess we got to go thumbs down, I guess, right?
Yeah, thumbs down. Who you got?
Dude, I don't
I
know.
Can buy you time. I got one.
Go ahead.
Hey, Keely Ringo, bud. Listen, you're not on the field much. He actually did get on the field as a cornerback for one or two plays because of Mitchell going down there, which was scary at first, but he seems to be pretty okay. He got right back out there. Ringo, 2 penalties on punts, one of which was a ridiculous tackle the guy who just signaled for a fair catch play, and it looked like Ringo was looking in his direction when he called for that fair catch. When they showed the replay of that, I was ready for a tiny little wave that, looked like not a full declaration that I don't want to be hit. No, he did the whole thing. He did the whole wave there. And then the other one was maybe a little tougher call. Ringo could have certainly tried a little harder to fight to get in bounds, but you can't be having those kind of penalties. I mean, those are crucial yards too, especially the 15-yard hit on the guy who fair caught the ball. I mean, now they're starting their drive at, I don't know what it was, at the plus 30-yard line. So thumbs down, Ringo. Come on, man. Come on, guy.
Yeah, definitely not his best game. And I'm going to go with another secondary player alongside him, Vontae Maddox. He had, how many plays did he have? 2, and he had a penalty on one of them.
Yeah, 2 plays.
Yeah. It's sad because he showed a lot of promise in his first few years out of college, drafted from Pittsburgh, 3rd round pick. We thought we stole something with him. He showed a lot of promise, but the last few years he has just really, really fallen off. But thankfully they have a lot of depth in the secondary, especially at slot corner. Because imagine we don't have Cooper DeJean and Avonte Maddox is our slot corner. This defense looks a lot different than it does right now. So
I still believe that was a turning point when he went in and replaced Avonte. Speaking of turning point, it looks like this time Colin is the one with the technical issues. He wanted to start going the Packers-Lions route. I think that I'm live and he's the one with the technical issues, but I guess I'll find out soon enough. Let me see here. I didn't get to preview this game a lot. It's one of those games where I feel like the Lions at a lot of different positions have the higher level of talent. But hey, there he is. I just started going the direction of the Lions Packers. Do you want me to keep riding the wave here?
Yeah, I sorry, I fat fingered my mouse here, but yeah,
So I was just saying, kind of what I was saying earlier to you, that on paper, I feel like the Lions have a lot of the top talent, and their offensive line is freaking good. Like Detroit's offensive line is outstanding. That right tackle. Did you watch the Thanksgiving game? I think it was the Thanksgiving game where they tried to give Penei Sewell. Am I saying his name right?
yeah.
They tried to give him a pass to the end zone.
I don't remember that play off the top of my head. I think that was right when we were sitting down to eat.
They like pitched it to him, and I think this is even more impressive, is he got the pitch to him and he looked to pass it, and the guy was pretty covered, so he didn't want to force a throw, so then he ended up tucking it down. He was probably hit like 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but he just slowly just grinded through guys with like no momentum, by the way. He wasn't like running full speed, and ended up getting like a yard or something like that. But that Lions offensive line is athletic and disgusting, but I got that same feeling you do. It feels like the Packers could do something tonight.
I'm feeling Packers all the way. And this game means so much for the Eagles because if the Lions win, they pretty much lock up the 1 seed. If the Packers win, that opens up the door, especially with the schedule that the Eagles have, to take the 1 seed from the Lions. The thing that matters the most is if the Lions lose, the Eagles will be playing all the way through to week 18 to try to secure the 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Now, if the Lions win tonight and they, again, basically lock up the 1 seed, the Eagles are going to treat week 18 against the Giants as their bye because they're not going to get one. So this game means everything for not only the NFC, but the NFL as a whole, because you're talking about 2 completely different scenarios. If the Lions are playing at home in the NFC Championship game or they're playing in Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. And this is assuming that it's Lions-Eagles.
What's the tiebreaker deal here?
I think it is conference record.
That's what I
thought. The Lions would share the same losses against opponents, being the Buccaneers and the Packers. And it would go down the list. I don't know what specific tiebreaker it is, but the Eagles would win on tiebreakers if they both finished 15-2.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's because we beat the Packers and the Lions were 1-1 against them. Thank you, Kevin Bloomfield. That really, I think that's the tiebreaker.
That is deep down the line, I feel like.
Probably. Again, I don't have the tiebreaker scenarios in front of me, but that would make sense. Yeah, the Lions would be 1-1 against the Packers, and how big that Brazil game will rear its head come down to week 18 if that's the win that gets them the 1 seed. So
go, yeah, Pack, go.
Amen, brother. Even if they don't win, I'm going to root my tuchus off for the Packers to win tonight. I'm looking forward to watching some football coming up here in about half an hour. So I don't know. Do we want to mention that the Sixers still suck and the Flyers are still figuring it out?
Flyers are pretty hot right now, actually.
Yeah, they're playing better than they were at the beginning of the season.
They're playing great hockey right now. Haven't they won, like, I don't want to say they've won 4 in a row and be wrong about that, but
they have won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5. The only loss coming at the game I was at, which they lost in the shootout against the Golden Knights a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and they've been playing good, decent teams too. The Predators game was wild, and then the Rangers are a good hockey team. They're playing pretty poorly right now, but still, they got a tough matchup tonight in the Florida Panthers, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, live update. It's 2-0 Panthers, end of the first.
Yeah, sounds about.
But
about
the
right.
Florida Panthers are one of the best teams in hockey, and the defending Stanley Cup champion? Or no,
defending champs, man.
Yeah, that's right. They beat the Oilers.
Won me a good bit last year. Shout out.
There you
go Flyers.
Yeah, and the Sixers still suck because Joel Embiid can't get healthy, and neither can Paul George. I'm not going to watch the Sixers game until probably after the Super Bowl, if I have to be honest.
I watched the other night. They won. Paul George was back, and he
Went for
looked
29
good.
against the Charlotte Hornets. They beat the Bees Nest.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Without LaMelo Ball too, without their best player. Nice. And then they lost yesterday to another bad team. Who was it?
Your guess is as good as mine because
No, it wasn't a bad team. It was the Magic, who have, you'd be surprised how good of a year the Magic are having with a lot of names that you probably don't recognize. And Banchero has been hurt for a long while now, and the Magic defense is like one of the best defenses in all of the NBA, which is wild. But they're
we're
playing
getting
really
into the
good
weeds here with basketball. The Magic are 7-1 in the last 8. So yeah, playing good basketball. Sixers still only lost by 4. So
yeah, it was
maybe that's a good sign.
Tyrese should have got some foul calls. Not getting any help from the officiating there. Tough ending.
Well, the Sixers aren't getting calls. Jalen Carter's not getting calls, but I'm calling it right now. Go Pack, go! They're winning tonight. I can't wait to play the outro song. 8-game win streak. Fly Eagles, fly, baby. They still have not lost. I don't think they lose at all against the Panthers. I think they blow them out by 20. I said 34-13. That's my prediction for Sunday.
The Eagles Panthers.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be able to run the ball well, so I don't think the Panthers are going to get many offensive possessions, and I think that Bryce Young, who started to look good, he's got that old man Adam Thielen out there. He's got Leggett, who is the top receiver for the Panthers. If you put Leggett's stats on the Eagles right now, he'd be the 4th on the list for receiving yards. That's how poorly that offense has been going. So, yeah, I'm guessing the Panthers go ahead and get 2 field goals. That's 6 points. We're going to get 2 turnovers, and we're going to score 28. So that puts us at a grand total of what, 28-6?
I love that. That'd be great. Keep them under 10.
I guess 10.
Last note of business, looks like Goddard will not play. Unsure about Slay or Reed Blankenship's in concussion protocol. He might not be, but it looks like Devontae is on track to play for Sunday, so that's good. We will keep an eye on the injury report as it progresses throughout the week.
It's going to be another Calcaterra game.
Maybe. Grant, let's go on a Terra again.
And they recently signed Ozuma again, I think I saw.
Yeah? Okay. Well, we'll see
if
he
gets
any run.
That makes more sense now in light of the Goddard news. I didn't know.
Yeah, they probably know that Goddard's not going to play.
Yeah.
He might be out multiple weeks, actually, from what it seems.
Oh, no.
But
I feel like they are playing it safe with a lot of these injuries, though, Smith being an example of that.
Yeah, they're still winning games. They don't need to force these guys into play when they're winning with any of their backups. I'm with you. Yeah, they don't need to force these guys to play. It's going to be a long season. They have their bye week in week 5. These guys are tired. Rest them up when they can.
Look, Kevin, I got the Packers winning tonight. I got Jordan Love having a great game. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to have an incredible rushing game because the Lions' defense is going to be stout. But I love that tight end craft. Doubs is out. When a top wide receiver goes down, I always look to the tight end.
So you're saying Tucker anytime touchdown?
I always look to the tight end, Colin.
You won't commit. I like it. I'll sprinkle a little money on that. Oh man, it's gonna
love that.
It's gonna
too,
be
Kevin.
It's gonna be a fun game to watch tonight. I can't wait to watch the Eagles steamroll the Panthers on Sunday. It's a good time to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Dan, this has been a lot of fun.
Yes,
do you have anything for the people on the way out before we close out here?
No, just stay tuned on the Barkley yards. He could break the single. He could legitimately break the single season record this week. Legit.
This is true.
He could do it. Keep an eye out.
All right.
out.
I'm looking
and
forward
keep
to
pressuring them to run the ball. That's another turning point of this season. Always pressure people because sometimes they'll run the ball more.
Amen to that. And if you're in the Northeast, stay warm because it is brick AF, as the kids would say. Yeah, don't go outside without layers on because it's cold. But on that note,
cold.
Dan, I love you. This has been a lot of fun as always. Looking forward to another NFL week and catching up about it next week, brother.
Yes, sir. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Oh, and one last thing. What's America's bird? The Eagles.
The Eagle.
Love it.
Solid
Go
work.
Birds. Talk to you
All
later,
right.
Dan.
Later.